Hi everyone. We are going to learn about the most popular platform on mobile, and that is iOS, iPhone. As already we have been using a lot of smartphones these days, but still we see that in the market, in fact, most of the US market, like if you start designing applications today, then you will find that most of the market in US is still on iOS, right? In fact, you will find that if some companies trying to make an application, then they would definitely try to have its iOS version, if not the Android one, right? So the most popular stream of mobile application development is iOS, and it has really lot of cool features. It has evolved a lot from being a simple smartphone to lot of things that you can do now. Like you can see, if you have an iPhone, you can use Siri, which is like a smart audio, which helps you to, which guides you whatever you want to get from it through voice. And in fact, the new art kit, which is like AR kit, which is introduced in iOS, where you can create 3D models and you can have the augmented reality inside it. And also like the machine learning part that is integrated with iOS itself. So there are a hell lot of things that are being included in iOS, and they keep on upgrading. And in fact, in latest iOS 14, they have really ramped up a lot of new features into it, right? So let's get started with iOS development, and let's have a brief about the history and all of like how it all started. So it was like in January 9th, 2007, iPhone was unveiled, and it was shown that there is some, you can say, smartphone. So in that time, Nokia was at the top, and most of the people used to have Nokia phones, if you remember. So it was more uh, dominant in the market. But when iPhone arrived, then it totally changed the environment. There was only a single button, and that was called the home button, and it changed the complete way of mobile platform. So it was completely like a touch screen, and you can do anything on the touch screen. There were no buttons at all available, right? And in 2008, the operating system was named as iPhone OS, right? And then in 2010, the original name, which is now we call it iOS. And in fact, like recently, they have also renamed their two platforms. For the iPhone, it's called iOS, and for the iPads, they are called as iPad OS. The reason was that iPad is evolved in a different environment, and there are a lot of features which iPad can support, but iPhone cannot because of the screen sizes, right? And that is why they segregated both of them. So now it's iOS and iPad OS. But believe me, if you learn iOS, there is nothing new in iPad OS. In fact, when we develop applications in iOS, automatically iPad application is also being developed. It is just that there are few features, a few UI elements which are different in iPad because of the screen sizes. Otherwise, it's completely same. If you write the code, it will work perfectly either in iPad or in iPhone, right? So let's first understand the developer tools that are being used, because developer tools are the only way a developer can design an application. So the IDE, as we already know, integrated development environment, which contains all the tools, SDKs, and everything that you need to develop an application, is being made by this Xcode on the left hand side, which you can see, right? So we will start developing the application, in Xcode itself. So I will give you a brief of how we actually write application in Xcode today so that you have an idea, and then we will jump into the Swift, the programming part, because our first step would be to be familiar with the programming languages which are underlying in iOS, and as and when we understand that, we can move ahead and write applications. Okay, so the two languages that are supported by uh, iOS development, one is Objective-C. The Objective-C is the oldest language that was like from the beginning. If you see in the historical part as well, in 2007 itself, it was Objective-C all over in iOS development, in Mac development, everything related to Apple was developed in Objective-C. But from past 5 years, I would say they have completely transited from Objective-C to Swift. And today you will have very less code being written in Objective-C because people have now completely moved into Swift itself. And that is the reason they have made it open source. So Swift is completely open source to the community. So any developer can make changes in the library and can actually submit those changes if they are being approved by the developer community itself. So that is the reason why Swift, and believe me, writing code in Swift will uh, not only give you a great amount of idea in how object-oriented programming is done, but also the latest and coolest features in mobile application development or in anywhere you will learn while writing code in Swift, because Swift has evolved a lot. If you see that Objective-C was the oldest one, and there used to be pointers and a lot of things which were really tedious for developers, because working with pointers and all took a lot of time and there was a learning curve in that. But as the things have evolved, Swift has become the most popular language, and also writing code is like, since it has been, you can say, open source, so a lot of people have added a lot of cool features into it, and it is one of the best languages to be learned today. Okay, so my suggestion would be that if you want to learn about Objective-C, you can go and learn about it, but we will work only on Swift, because Swift is, you will find any code written today, it's on Swift. You won't find much support in Objective-C until unless there is a very urgent need, like say an application has been written 10 years back and they cannot change the code today itself. But still what people have done is, whatever applications that were written previously, they are also converted into Swift itself, because now Swift has a lot of features which Objective-C is not handling, and also like it's an older one, so people are moving into that itself. So Swift is the language which we are going to work on. Okay, now before diving into what application development in iOS means, let's first understand the architecture of iOS application. So any iOS application has the core, you can say, 4 pillars and 4 parts, which are like Coco Touch, media layer, core services, and core OS. So let's go one by one to each one of them and understand. Right. So Coco Touch. So this is also one of the oldest one, which is used for the UI part of the application. And one more thing, these layers, you will find the top layer comes under the application layer itself. So most of the code that we write is on the Coco Touch layer, right? The media layer, also we write few things like related to media, like if you talk about audio, video, and these kind of applications, then the media layer is being used. Then comes the core services and core OS. They are a bit more into operating system. So we touch only those frameworks which are available to us. All the things are not available in the last 2 layers, that is core services and core OS. Okay, so because they are more into operating system layers, and Apple does not want that you change things at the OS level, right? Right, so Coco Touch, it is basically, as the name suggests, it deals with the touch part, and also Cocoa is the basically the framework on which it's been developed, and that framework is working on the UI part of your application. So everything on the UI is being handled by the Coco Touch itself. Okay, so some examples are like event kit. So event means like if you have a calendar kind of events, or maybe you want to tell that there is particular reminder, then these are being handled by the event kit. Okay, then comes the game kit framework. So if you are developing more kind of games part, because they are you can say more UI extensive, so over there the game centric part is handled by the game kit. Then comes the iAd framework. So this is related to more kind of ads that you see in any application in iOS. So it deals with that. Then comes the MapKit framework. So MapKit is related to all that we do with the Apple Maps, and that has been handled by the MapKit framework. And then comes the PushKit framework. So it is related to mostly VoIP or voice related kind of stuff. Okay. So the second layer which we mentioned was the media layer. So media layer is like more into graphics part. So it says UI kit graphics. So it describes the high level support for designing images and also animating. Okay. So anything related to animation or core UI is handled by media layer. Then comes the core graphics framework. So it is a native drawing engine for iOS apps, and it gives for support for the custom 2D vectors. So basically the rendering part of your uh, objects that you display on the screen is handled by this core graphics framework, right? So whenever we'll write code, you will find that these particular classes are coming from this particular class, right? So if we write something like if we want to draw some circles or shapes and all on the screen, and in that case you will see that you are going to use this kind of framework itself, right? And then comes the animation part. So animation deals with whatever animations you have on the screen. So it could be not only on the games but also on the application part. Say you want to, on a click of a button, you want to show some action and you want to show a transition from one screen to another. That is done by animation itself. So that comes under it. Then core images. So whatever support is there for dealing with images in iOS is dealt by these layers itself. So the core image, right? Then another one is OpenGL ES and GLKit. So these are all related to gaming. So if you want to write 3D games, 2D games, then these are all the engines present for that. And also there is Metal framework that permits very high performance for your graphics. Okay, so it's basically on the, so if you will find most of the media layer is dealing with all the drawing related, animation related, and your graphics related stuff, right? Then comes the core services layer. So the core services layer are like address book. So whatever is there in your address book or cloud kit. So if you are using cloud in your mobile phone and in your app, so it's been handled there. Then comes the core data. So core data deals with the database. Okay, and this is the core database part of iOS applications. So mostly whatever we save in uh, related to databases, that is done by the core data framework. Okay. Then comes the core foundation. So interfaces that give fundamental data management are and service features for iOS apps. So these are also core foundations, are also data management kind of files. And core location is related to the maps, as we know, because it's a part of location. And then core motion. So core motion is like whenever you want to know that your mobile is rotated, right? So it's been handled by accelerometer. There is a device inside, a sensor basically inside your iPhone, it's accelerometer, and it gives you that there is a particular motion that has happened in your phone, right? So these are handled by these core motion frameworks. And again, the foundation framework. So basically they are the same ones, right? And the last one is core OS layer. So these are more related to our OS part, and we deal with only few things. So these few things are mentioned over here, but there are a lot of things which we cannot do because they are OS related, and that is not permitted from the Apple side itself. Okay, so they are like core Bluetooth framework. So if you want to work on a Bluetooth APIs, you can do that. Or Accelerate framework is more related to uh, your motion itself. So this previous one, core motion, is only related to accelerometer or that kind of things. But Accelerate framework is more into other hardware devices, your batteries and all, where you can use this one. Then external accessory is like if you have attached any external pen drive or something, then that's deal with it. Security services are the security related features that you can integrate in your app using this particular framework. And local authentication is like related to your face ID and the touch ID and all, which you want some authentication on your application. So in your application, if you want to have a face recognition kind of thing, or you want to have a touch ID, then these are useful over there, right? So this was more a kind of way to understand like how these services are. But yeah, don't worry, we are going to touch most of the layers, and we will be developing applications, so you will understand after that which particular layer we were working on. But most of the layers are, you must have seen that Coco Touch and media layers are something that we will be using a lot. So if we are talking about UI, graphics and all, then media layer will come into picture. And if we are talking about some events or some game related stuff or map kit and all, then it will come into Coco Touch. Or in fact, if you have some touch events also, that is also handled by the Coco Touch itself. Okay, so these two layers will be used in most of the apps, but core services layer, like we will be using core data, that is for saving into database and all, and mostly we will be using that part, right? And the core OS layer, we won't be dealing much into it. If it's required, then only in our application we will be doing it. Okay, so let's get started with the Xcode part. So let me open up. So this is the icon which I had shown you. This is the actual development IDE, Xcode, for developing applications in iOS. Okay, so as over here on the left hand side, the first thing that you can see, its version is 11.6. So basically the latest one is 11.6, and it deals with iOS 13. Okay, so anything above 11 is fine with us. So if you want to develop applications, you should have at least Xcode 11 or above. Okay, if you are going to use below than that, then there might be some issues with the latest one. Although you will be able to work with that as well, but you won't have all the SDKs and all the features that are there in the latest one. Okay, so 11.0 and above is fine, although I'm having 11.6, which is the latest one, but you can have even the 11 version as well. And that version will be having iOS 13, right? So it's like they are running two different versions. For Xcode, it's say 11, then the iOS version for it is 13. Okay, so now the next version of Xcode will be 12, and the iOS for it will be 14. Okay, so there is a kind of a difference of 2 between the version of Xcode and the iOS version we are using. Okay, right. So as you can see, there are 3 options over here, like get started with playground. So playgrounds are very handy when you just want to learn to write code in Swift. So if you want that, you just have a practice and you learn like how the code is written, then we use playgrounds, and they are very handy because they give you the same environment, and also they waste less time. I will tell you, like from the playgrounds, we will start writing code. So once we'll write the code over there, you will learn about them as well. Okay. And the second part is the new Xcode project. So this is how we write beginning a new Xcode. And also the third is clone an existing project. So it's like if there is some other project that is available in Git, you can actually clone it and start writing your code over there. Okay, so let's create a new Xcode project. So I clicked on it, and here are a bunch of all the options. So on the top you can see iOS being present over there, and after that you can see that Watch OS is there. So Watch OS is related to more if you want to develop watch apps which are provided by Apple. So it's Watch, which is having a platform as Watch OS. So you can use that for it. tvOS is another platform provided by Apple. So it's for the Apple TV. Their OTT platform is there, and you can develop applications over here for the TV part of Apple. Then comes the Mac OS. So Mac OS is if you want to develop for this particular Mac device, then you can use Mac OS for it. And in the end comes the cross-platform. So cross-platform is more into gaming platform, and it's like if you want to develop games and all for that purpose, it is available, right? So let's go to iOS, which is the first one. And here we have a lot of features. So if you see, the first one is single view application. So basically this first one option is going to create an application with a single view in it. So single view means view is basically a rectangular area which is going to be displayed on the screen. Okay, and what we can do is we can create a view, a rectangular area, and we can have bunch of different elements onto it, like buttons, labels, and whatever you see in iOS, maybe a switch, maybe a slider. So there are a lot of things. So a view holds all these kind of elements, and it's the core or the basic, you can say, yeah, it's right. So it's a single page application itself. Correct. So like if you have developed other platforms also, so it's the first, and it's not that you can only write a single view in it. You can increase the number of views as well. It's not that purpose, but the single view app means that it will give you the starting of a skeleton of a single view, and after that it's up to you how to get and how to move around it. Okay. Then another one is the game. So if you are interested in developing games, then that is for you. And augmented reality app. So these are another feature of iOS. So you can basically create augmented reality, which means that you can add random objects on the real world, right? So we will be also learning about that in our one of the sessions which we'll be having, where you will learn like how augmented reality or AR kit can be used in an application. Okay. And then comes the document based app. So it's more related to you can say the folder where you save the data in your iOS apps. So there is a document app in iOS which saves the data, right? So if you have a smartphone, you might be aware of a documents app inside it. So you can make that kind of applications. Master detail app is like, it's more like on the left hand side you have a view, which is, you can say, a master view, and on the right hand side the detail about it. Like let me give you an example of an email app. So in email app, on the left hand side you have all the emails that you have got, and on when you click on them, then on the right hand side you have the detail of that email, right? So these kind of apps can be developed using master detail app. And then comes the tabbed app. So tabbed are like on the bottom, there will be 4 or 5 tabs, and you can select any one of them. And when you select any one of them, that particular view will be changed and it will be dealing with only that tab, right? So we will be writing. So basically we should first have a good idea of like how to write a dummy application, and then it will be much easier. You will be able to understand these kind of apps. Okay, so I will tell you, like after you have worked on a lot of applications on single view, you will find it much easier to select, because you can in fact create a tabbed app using single view as well. There is no problem. In fact, you can create a master detail using this particular one. It's just that they are going to, if say if your application is an email application, right? So if you want to save some time in development time, you can directly create a master detail app. Okay. So if you know that your application is just going to have a left screen and a right screen, and on the left hand side you will have all the data, and once a user click on it, then on the right side you need to show the details. Like in fact in news apps also you have the same kind of view itself, right? So for that purpose, and say if you want, you know that your application has only tabs in it, then you can go for this one, right? Sticker pack apps are like the stickers that we get or we create in our applications, like in WhatsApp also we send. So these kind of apps can be written over here. And iMessage app is like related to your messages application in iOS. Okay, so if you have seen an iPhone smartphone, in that iMessage is the name of the message app which we use. Okay, so if you want to make any extension or use it, then you can write this particular app itself, iMessage, right? And then there are a bunch of other things like frameworks, so static library and metal. So framework is like let me show you again. I already mentioned these are also frameworks. Like if you see event kit framework, game kit framework. So these frameworks are like a bunch of libraries which are going to give you some methods. Using that you can actually write your application. Like say for example, I want to create a events app, right? So say I want to set up a meeting. I want to create an application which is capable of setting a meeting at 8 p.m. right? So for making that, I need to have access to the calendar, right? So for getting the access to the calendar, there must be some APIs exposed by the OS to me that I can use and integrate in my application and use it. So for that purpose, I would be using this event kit and using some APIs of it and trying to make my application out of it, right? So the framework means that if you want to create your own framework that others can use, then in that case you can make a framework. Or it could be like in your company also, you want a particular framework to be created because you are writing that same code again and again. So you, in order to have like a code which is not rewritten again and again, you can have a framework over there. Okay. And then comes a static library. So static library is like more kind of related to your only application. So you can create a library which deals with some static methods or functions which will be used in your own application, right? You don't want to expose it to someone else. then that goes into the static library, and metal library is like, as I had shown you, metal is another framework which deals with the sophisticated graphics. So if you have to render a very good or a very complex kind of animation, and that too you have to use, so A7 GPU is basically integrated inside the iOS. You can say the hardware part, and so it's the processor part. So if you want to use this kind of graphics where it is like core graphics, like in case of games, then you can use this metal library. Okay, so let's create a single view app, and today let's just have an idea like how it deals with it. Okay, so let's give it a name. So right now I'm giving it first app, right? And if you see, first app is basically what your product name would be when it's going to be present on the, you can say, in the Apple Store. Okay, once you develop this application and you submit it to the Apple Store, then the name of this product will come from here, right? So whatever you give a name over here will be shown on that place, right? And here is add an account. So this is basically deals with an account which you should have in order to write any application. So as of now, I would not be using that particular account, but yes, I will be integrating that. But without that account also, we can still check or run the application on the emulator at least. Okay. But if you want to run it on the iPhone, then you need to have a developer account, because Apple is very strict in these kind of things. In Android, it is easy to make an application, and if you want to run it, then it's like just connect with the cable and transfer your code, and it starts working on the Android smartphone, right? But in iOS, they are very particular about it. So for that purpose, they have made it that you should have at least a developer account, and it's not necessary that you purchase the account. You should have an Apple ID, right? At least an Apple ID. So Apple ID is similar, like you create an ID on any platform, say Gmail ID or any ID which you have. So on the Apple website, you can go and create the Apple ID over there. And after that, you can add that account over there, right? And in fact, over here also, it's giving us an option to create an Apple ID. So if you click on it, it will give you the way how to create it and add it, right? So it's like your date of birth and all and everything it will take, and you can create an Apple ID, and it will not ask for any developer license at that time, right? But if you want to run it on your mobile phone, then you need to have a developer account. Otherwise, it won't run. So that is like a more secure way of dealing with iOS. And that is why it has like, uh, you can say, its own set of rules to develop any application. So they do that because they say that they want a more secure platform. It should not be like anybody develop application and runs on the mobile phone, and then mobile phone crashes, and after that they go to Apple and say like why it's not working. So they have their own set of rules. That is why they have made it mandatory to have a developer license if you want to run it on the mobile phone. Okay, but on the emulator you can try, that won't be any problem over there, right? So organization name is any name which you want to put over here. So it's basically it's taking up the name which I have in my Mac, but you can have any organization name. So if I say home over here, you would see that it's been taken as home itself, right? And over here you can give a organization and identifier. So it's the name. And now say if you are working for Google, then you can type in the name of Google, right? So what it does is, if you see, if I have typed in over here, you would see like in the starting it's com.yourcompany.firstapp. So what it means is, if you flip it, this part is the name of your app, first app, right? Whatever we have written over here. Then this part, your company, is the name of organization or anything where you are working and for which you are making the application. And then com comes, you can say, like if I am working in google.com, then .com is kind of identifier for it, right? So whenever you create an application, there is a bundle identifier created by it. Okay, and how what's the reason for creating this one? Say suppose you want to submit your application to App Store. Now say my application name is First App. Okay. Now in the world there could be hundreds and thousands of apps whose name could be First App, right? So how Apple Store will be able to, yeah, you can say it's like a domain, correct. You can say that definitely it's a kind of a domain way of writing, similar way. But yes, it's more specific to when you deal with Apple Store. So what I was saying was that on Apple Store, there would be same name of the app in that particular way. So in order to have a unique name, what they do is, this is being written as your bundle identifier, or this is the ID of your application when it's going to run on the iOS platform. Okay, so when it's going to run, your Apple phone is going to first download your application from Apple Store, right? And in Apple Store, your application should be unique. So how it can be unique? See, com.yourcompany, right? So if you are working in Google, then definitely com.google will come over here, right? And com.google means that at least your domain is, or you can say your identifier is unique till this name, because nobody else is going to use Google like this, right? com.google. And after that comes the name of the application. So it's not going to search for first app, it's going to search for this complete identifier. And this can only be done by a organization name. And when you give an organization name over here and you try to submit, then right now on the simulator you can work, but when you are trying to submit it into the Apple Store, you have to fill all the details over there, and then it's going to tally the organization name and all the things. Okay, and if there is something wrong over there, then definitely your app will be rejected. Apple is very strict in all these kind of things, and that is the reason people are more you can say addicted towards the iOS apps, because they are more secure and they are like written in a very better way. Okay, because of the restrictions being given by Apple. So that is why you have to have some, and once you are submitting, obviously your code will be tested by the Apple server, and if there are some discrepancies, then Apple will reject it. Okay, so that is why. So let's give it home over here as an organization, and you can see that now it's converted to home.firstapp. Okay, so once I will click next, it will ask me for where to save my application. So let me create a new folder in the desktop, and let me call it iOS projects, and create it. And so this will be on my iOS projects folder in the desktop folder, right? So let me create it, and once I create, it will then start working, right? So this is like how we deal with writing applications in iOS. Okay, so right, so now we are with the first iOS app over here, and let me just show you like how it looks like. So on the right hand side where I clicked on the button over there, it's just going to show a UI to us regarding whatever we have developed. So let me, it's taking some time. So basically there is a preview on the left hand side. Yeah, you can see that you can have a preview directly over here. Okay, so that is the beauty of development. Whatever code I write over here, if I say I want to change it to hello to first app, on the right hand side you can see the directly on the preview of the screen. So this screen is called the content preview. Okay, so if you see over here, this particular part, this one deals with this displaying it. If I remove from it, if I delete it, it's gone, right? And if I bring it back, it's over there. So this is for the purpose of seeing it over there. But if you want to see it on the simulator itself, then you can click over here. So this is my app, first app, and these are all the devices that are available. So these devices are compatible with iOS 13, and uh, like we are using 11.6. If you see over here, I showed you in the beginning, like if you see its version is 11.6. So whatever devices that can be developed above that, these particular devices are available, right? So let's pick up any one of them. So I have selected iPhone 11 Pro, and when I click on this play button, it's going to run and show us on the, so you can see this is the simulator of iPhone 11 Pro, and we can have a view of like what is done in our application. We can see it over here. So it's just trying to open up. So right. Right, so here you can see hello to the first app, right? So it's up to you. If you want to save time and preview things over here, you can keep it. Otherwise, you can delete it. It's not mandatory, okay? You can remove it also from here. It's not mandatory to have it. And right, so let's understand a few more things over here. So on the left hand side, as you can see, this is my first app. And this is the complete structure. If I close everything over here, then you will see. So this inside my app, which is the first app, there are folders like first app, then test, then UI test, and the products. So this is my code, the first app folder. It will have all the code that we are going to write. And after that, there is the test folder. So whatever tests you want to write for your application, you can have it over here, and it will deal with all the tests which you have, right? So these are, you can say this XC test case is basically deals with the unit test cases, right? So it's also been integrated in the framework of iOS application. So whenever you write code, you can have the unit test also written, which means that you can test your functions uh, on this, you can say on the range of values which it can hold. Say for example, you want to add two integers, right? So as we know that integers have a limit from minus a number to plus a number, right? If we go beyond that range, then it's not going to work because it will need more area or more, you can say memory, right? So in that case, we are not able to use int, we will use long over there, right? So in order to test the extreme situations of our methods or functions that we have used in the application, you can use this particular XC test, okay? and the other part is the unit test for UI tests. So you can in fact write UI related tests over here as well. Okay, and finally is the product folder where we have the app. So this particular icon, which is it it is kind of an icon of Apple Store, and it's shown as A. So this is the actual app in the end which will be created. And so basically in case of iOS, you have .app app that is created. So .app is the extension of the file. Like in case of Windows, we have .exe. In case of iOS, we have .app. And this is like how we have different kinds of extensions based upon different kind of platforms, right? So it is for that purpose, and these are related to the tests. Okay, so let's go into our main folder, which is the first app folder. And over here, like, we can write down all the, yeah, these UI tests are related to automated tests, that is right. uh, whenever we have automation in UI, we use this kind of framework. So the test, you can say, the people who are working in automation, they can use this particular ones for automating any test cases, right? So that is that purpose, right? So let's go into this part and let's see whatever we have. So this is the first part, which is called as the app delegate. So app delegate is basically the starting or the entry of your application. Okay, so inside it we have this particular class. So don't worry about the code, because from tomorrow itself we will start writing Swift code, so that you have a basic idea of how Swift code is written. Okay, once you have that understanding, like how we write the code, you will understand what a particular code means over here. But just to give you a heads up, this is a class named app delegate, which is the basic class that is used in iOS, or you can say the entry point. And this particular class deals with these methods. So whenever your application is running, there is some methods that will happen, and where you can write the code, where you can enter inside the application. So the first method over here is did finish launching with options. Okay, so it means that it has finished all things related to launching, and now the application is going to launch, right? So once it's going to launch, over here you can write your custom code, whatever you want before the application launches, whatever, sorry, after the application launches, whatever you want to do with the application, you can write over here. Okay, and then another one is configuring for connecting and connecting scene session. So this is like so there is another concept in iOS, that is like everything is a scene. Okay, a scene means like, you can think of it as a movie is running. So a particular time you see a particular scene, right? And when the people start moving and the things change, then the scene also transit from one to another. Okay, so you can call it a scene in iOS. So that is a kind of thing over here. So we will be writing code, and then you will be understanding more about it. But the main class where we write code is the content view. Okay, but these classes are just on the background where we don't write code. These are like entry points where very rarely you would write code in case you have, say, a very specific task to be done during launch, or you have something to be done when a scene changes from one scene to another scene. Okay, and to deal with it, there is another class which is a scene delegate. So a scene delegate has these bunch of methods, and a scene is, let me also show you like what we were seeing over here. Right, so with this life cycle also you will understand few things, like if your application in the starting will not be running, and then in the beginning it's say launch screen UI, it's in a inactive state, which means just before launching it's inactive because the user has clicked on it, but still it is doing something before it presents itself. Okay, so launch screen UI is there, and once that is complete, then you get the applications UI. It becomes active, and during its active it is working and doing whatever the application is supposed to do. Then in the middle it might become inactive. When it might become inactive, say you receive a phone call interrupt, and once you receive a phone call interrupt, then it has to go to the background because phone calls are mandatory and they cannot be you can say bypassed, right? So after that it goes to background, and once it's in the background, it's either it's going to be suspended, which means that it might be killed and removed, or from the background it can go back to non-running part and again launch back, right? So there could be two possibilities over here. And also over here, while in the active state, the application can also be suspended. So you can see that the error is coming from suspended back to inactive, right? So it can go back to inactive state and then background. So there are scenarios like, say, if you want to download something in the background, and like for example music app is there and you want to play music, and you go to the background and you again open up another application. So the background app is your music app which is still working in the background, right? So that background kind of scenarios and suspended comes under picture if you have to handle these kinds of apps. Okay, so let's get back over here. So over here in the scene delegate, you will see this kind of methods like scene became active and resign active, will resign active. Okay, so become active means that the scene is going to become active. So whatever is on your screen, whatever is going to be displayed on the screen is going to be active now. So if you want to do anything at this particular time, you can use this particular method over here. Okay, and then it's going to resign active, which means that it is will move from active state to a inactive state. Okay, so like I mentioned over here, from active to inactive it's going to move. So in that case also scene will resign inactive. So life cycles in total, if you see, then this is the actual life cycle. Okay, this is only one life cycle, but it is, you can say, a very bigger view of an application. Your application might have different life cycles inside it. Like if I'm saying it's active, then inside the active also there could be n number of things that are happening in the application, right? So if you see, these are only either your application is launched or application is active, inactive, or it's in background. These are the main ones. Okay, but to handle with these different kind of things, like scene will enter foreground, which means that before it is going to again enter foreground, it is going to be visible, right? Say your application, you have pressed the home button, your application has gone in the background, right? Now you want to bring it back. So once you click on it, the scene or your application will come enter into foreground itself, right? So once it's entering into foreground, it's going to have something. So this particular method is where you can write things over here, right? So these are like a different kind of points where we write code, but we will learn them one by one. Once we write the application, you will understand like where are they being used. Like let me give you a small example. Say in your application, you want to have a passcode screen, right? So whenever user clicks, whenever user makes your application on the background, user clicks home button, your application goes in the background. What we want is whenever it is back, then the first thing to be displayed is passcode, right? So to have a passcode, you have to have this enter foreground method. In that you need to pass your passcode and you need to display it over there. Okay, so these are all different kind of methods which will be handy once you will start writing application for that particular purpose. But we usually don't write code in these two ones like app delegate and scene delegates. We are working on the content view, which is our first view, right? Remember, we created a single view app. So this is the view which is present in our delegate, which is the app delegate, and which is trying to display itself. And what it is trying, it's just showing a text to us which says hello to first app, and which we try to change, right? Now on the right hand, this particular, if you click on this one, you will see some options like it says show editor only. So if I click over here, this is the code editor which it is showing, right? And if I click on the canvas part, it's going to show me the canvas or the drawing, right? The preview is not available because we removed this code, and that is why it was not visible. Now if I say resume, you will again find the preview over there which we had seen in the starting. It's saying build is succeeded, so it's actually running the code also, and it will show us the live view of the app over here itself. Okay, sometime it might take some time, so right, so it might be having some problem, that is why it's not coming up, but that is only the screen where you can see it. But yeah, on simulator you can see the actual thing that is happening, right? So it's saying hello to first app, right? Now on the top side over here, you have, when I clicked on this plus button, you have all these options which you can add in your application. So it's like button, date picker, edit button, forms, group box, all these kind of things that you want to add to your application. You can select from here and you can put it on the application itself. Okay, so that is present over here. And then if you see on this button, so it shows show or hide code review. So basically on this part over here itself, you can open up another code to see one more editor. Say if I want to see two editors over here, then I can show, actually it's asking for the source code, that is why it's failing, but you can see two files together, one on the left hand side and another one on the right hand side by clicking on it. But it's only required if you want to compare two different kind of ones over here, right? If you want to see two like app delegate and scene delegate together, then you can use this one. Okay, now there are tools like if you click over here, it will, on the left hand side, it will remove that pane where we have all things related to it, all the files that we see for our application. And if you click over here, that particular one is removed. And right, so you can do on the right hand side also. On the bottom side, you will see whatever your code is doing. So any logs that you have written, you will see all the outputs in the bottom over here. Okay, and on the right hand side, if you want to remove this pane, right, so you can remove it by adding this particular one. Right, now you can see our hello world is visible, and this is like how. Now if you see over here, when I clicked on this view over here, we have all the properties related to it. So the text is over here where you can change it. So if I change it over here also, it will change it completely, right? And then you have the fonts that you can set. Say you want a large font, then it will become like this. If you want a weight for it, then you can set weight, means like it is thinner. The text you want to be thinner, or you want it to be light or regular. So these are different kind of categories. And then color which you want for this particular one. And you can see on the left hand side that the code is also written automatically. I'm not writing, I'm just changing these values and it's changing automatically, right? So these are all the properties that you can change, and you can run your application like this. Okay. So this was the complete overview of what application development in iOS is all about. So today we just had an idea about like how we can create an iOS Xcode project, and how we can just have an idea of like hello world application and what all is present inside, options present over here. So you need to practice with them, and then you will be able to work on it much more, right? So any questions regarding today's session? The programming part, so tomorrow we will start writing the Swift code, and we will try to learn as much as the programming part of it is. So Swift is a relatively a different kind of language, where you will find, so if you are coming from Java or from C++, then you will find it a bit different, the way the syntax is written and the way the things are written into it. And once we will deep dive into it, you will see like there are a hell lot of features which are in fact not available in C++ or Java. Okay, so we'll learn about more of those things. So any questions till now? Yeah, for feasibility to fit in iPad, iPhone, see Mac is a bit different, and they have started adding Mac as well. So if you click on this first app, you can see all the bunch of options over here. So if you see, my application is compatible. So here are the devices: iPhone, iPad, and I can in fact make Mac as well, right? And for the Mac support, it will add few more dependencies and it will align. So it says this target and its dependencies will link or embed on Mac compatible content and the security. So it will, once I click on that, it will enable it for the Mac itself, right? But we will be working on iPhone mostly, because we will be developing the applications which run on iPhone as a smartphone. And by default, iPad and iPhone will be selected. So you will find that whatever apps you develop, these are called universal apps, which will work on both iPad and iPhone. But still, it's not true that it will automatically start working. If your UI, say your screen has a width and height set, then it's definitely not going to work on on only one particular one. For that, say you have a screen, there is animation, there are some images of some size and resolution, then for iPhone and iPad, you will have to segregate them. Okay, you will have to have both those images, and inside your views also over here, you will have to set them in a different way. Okay, it's not that there is something magical that works on everything, but few things can run on both of them. But still, if you have some, say, images shown, or if you have the screen width and height being set according to your particular logic, then definitely it's not going to work exactly. Okay. No, there is no framework like Bootstrap over here. Basically, over here, what we do is whenever we create a universal app over here, we make the setting as, when you select these ones and say Mac also, these are enabled. And once they are enabled, then in your application itself, you are going to make, say over here, this is the launch screen. So right now it's showing you iPhone, right? So you can change, because I said that I can have more devices. So you can see that there are other devices as well. So iPad 10, 12, I can see and view what my app will look over here also, right? In this particular iPad, say this orientation, landscape, portrait, or someone. So it has its own way of dealing with it. There is no other platform for it, or bootstrap and all. It's doing it using its own set of classes and its own set of ways to handle with it. Okay. So this is like how we write applications. So any more questions regarding that? The best part is that learn about iPhone, because iPhone has more complexities than iPad, since iPhone is going to receive a phone call, right? So you have to handle phone calls as well. There could be a lot of things, and there is a memory constraint compared to an iPad. So if you are writing an application for iPhone, targeting iPhone, then iPad becomes more easier, because over there only the UI part is that you need to deal with it, but you don't need to deal with any other thing apart from that, right? Functionality, code, APIs will exactly be same either in iOS or in either in iPhone or in iPad. Okay, it's just that the UI screen, and there are few different controllers that are only available for iPad and not for iPhone. So that is why they converted two platforms, iOS and iPad OS, and that they started from iOS 13. So if you will see from iOS 13, they have segregated both of them. Before that, it was like iPad and iPhone, both the OS was called as iOS. Okay. So any more questions? Fine. So if we don't have any questions, then let's end for today's day. So we will start with the programming part from tomorrow on. So we'll practice about it. So are there any different versions of IDE? No, actually for developing iOS, you have to use Xcode only. For Windows, you can use, but it's not Xcode. Basically, Windows have a hybrid application development tool, that is Xamarin. But Xamarin is not for, like, only a category of apps can be developed. But for developing an iOS app, you need a Mac machine. And in fact, it's not mandatory to have a Mac machine. There are other ways for that as well. Like you can use VMware or VirtualBox. These are different tools on which you can run Mac, and you can at least check your application. Okay, you can test your application on the simulator. But yeah, if you want to once you have developed the application, you want to submit to App Store, then you need a Mac for it. You can't have any other machine to do that. You have to have a Mac. And this is how, like, they are selling their Mac machines, because people develop iOS application only on Mac. And this is how they promote their platform. Okay. Fine, then let's have a session then tomorrow. Thanks everyone for all the questions.